From surprising stories of people eating grass to the heartbreaking sight of hungry kids on the streets, have you ever wondered what North Korea tries to keep hidden from the world? In this video, we're diving into a collection of 25 photos that the North Korean regime doesn't want you to see. 25. Pleasure Squad. In North Korea, there allegedly is this secret group known as the Pleasure Squad, or Kipumjo, comprising about 2,000 women. They've been around since Kim Il-sung, and the tradition has continued through to Kim Jong-un. These women are split into 3 teams: the Manjokjo, or Satisfaction Team, who provide sexual services, the Hangbokjo, or Happiness Team, who give massages, and the Gamujo, who are all about singing and dancing. They're chosen for their looks and absolute loyalty to the government. These women go through intense training and are constantly monitored to ensure they keep their work secret. It's very hard to find any pictures or stories about them because North Korean officials quickly cover up any leaks to maintain a perfect image from the outside. The existence of the Pleasure Squad starkly shows the gap between the luxury life of the rulers and the harsh realities for regular folks in North Korea. It highlights how much the leadership cares about appearances over the actual well-being of their people. 24. Poor healthcare system. North Korea claims to have free healthcare for everyone, but the reality inside their hospitals is shocking. Surgeons are doing operations by candlelight because there's no electricity, and it's freezing because there's no heat. And this isn't just a one-time thing, it's how it always is. People there suffer through surgeries without any painkillers, enduring what feels like torture methods from centuries ago. There was this horrific case where a young guy had his leg cut off without any anesthesia and passed out from the pain. And this kind of thing is common. Looking for medicine? Good luck. You'd have to dig through the black market because hospitals barely have the basics to keep things clean, let alone medications. This leads to infections and complications after surgery. On top of all this, there's a serious problem with not having enough food, which makes diseases like tuberculosis even worse. 23. The Pyongyang Metro System. Pyongyang Metro has caught the world's attention. Before, nobody knew much about it because of all the secrecy. It's super deep, about 110 meters underground, and it's not just a subway, it's also a nuclear bunker. Built during the Cold War with help from the Soviets and Chinese, it opened in the 1970s. Strolling through the stations feels like a walk through a revolutionary museum. Each stop drips with grandeur, decked out in chandeliers, marble pillars, and vivid mosaics, each narrating tales of North Korea's storied past and its iron-fisted leaders. Yet, this splendor starkly contrasts the realities faced by the citizens above. For a long time, taking photos there was nearly impossible. Only a few stations were open for outsiders to see, which led to a lot of wild guesses about what was hidden down there. Recently, they've started letting people see all 16 stations, but they're still strict about what you can snap pictures of. You'll only see the shiny, clean parts, none of the old, scribbled-on stuff. 22. Banned missiles. North Korea's missile antics are pretty intense, everyone agrees. Their secret missile program, especially the big-time banned ones like the Hwasong-17, really stirs up global tensions. These missiles, which the United Nations totally frowns upon, stay hidden under tight wraps by North Korea. The Hwasong-17, a massive intercontinental ballistic missile, is notorious not just for its size but for its scary long reach. Meant to tote nuclear warheads, it's a giant red flag for global safety. Even though these missiles are a big no-no under international laws, North Korea keeps pushing the boundaries by building and testing them. Lately, North Korea has been firing off these banned missiles, each launch a thumb in the eye to the world and a showcase of their growing tech skills. For example, in 2022, they launched a bunch of these ICBMs, drawing a heap of side eyes and stern words from neighbors and countries worldwide. Photos from these missile tests are super sensitive. They spill the beans on the missile's looks, launching tech, and what it can do, chipping away at North Korea's hush-hush policy. These images are stark, chilling reminders of the regime's steady disregard for international peace rules. 21. Hotel of Doom. The Ryugyong Hotel in Pyongyang, known ominously as the Hotel of Doom, was supposed to be a marvel. Dreamed up in 1987, it aimed to be the tallest hotel on the planet, soaring 1,080 feet with 105 floors packed with 3,000 rooms. It boasted plans for revolving restaurants and grand ballrooms at its peak. But then everything crumbled. In 1992, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, North Korea's economy tanked, and the construction screeched to a halt. The giant concrete carcass stood untouched for 16 years, a stark monument to failure. North Korea even tried to erase its existence, scrubbing it from maps and photos. In a twist of fate, 2008 saw the Egyptian company Orascom swoop in, draping the structure in glass and metal to spruce it up. Yet, behind its shiny exterior, the inside stayed a ghost town. Efforts to bring it to life faltered time and again. Even the luxury hotel group Kempinski stepped up in 2012, only to retreat from the overwhelming task of revamping the stark concrete innards. Now, the Ryugyong Hotel looms over Pyongyang, the tallest empty building in the world, no longer hidden, yet still unopened. It's a chilling symbol of towering ambitions left unfulfilled, a silent watcher of the city. 20. Human experimentation. Reports of hidden human experiments in North Korea are deeply unsettling. Kwon Hyuk, who once oversaw security at Camp 22, reveals a chilling scene. Prisoners, including entire families, were trapped in glass chambers as deadly gases were released. Behind the glass, scientists coldly observed, taking notes on the horrific effects of chemical weapons on the human body. Lee Mi, a defector from the Yongbyon Nuclear Research Center, shares equally horrifying tales. She witnessed human subjects being exposed to radiation and toxic chemicals, all under the guise of scientific advancement. But the reality was a grotesque violation of human rights. Furthermore, Im Cheon-yong, a former military officer from Pyongyang, reports the heartbreaking use of disabled children in these cruel experiments. Taken from their homes, often in dark deals for food, these children were subjected to chemical tests. The regime's twisted justification, creating a flawless North Korean society free from any imperfections. 19. Begging in rural areas. On a day unlike any other, far beyond the bustling streets of Pyongyang, the harsh reality hits hard in rural North Korea. Despite the regime's efforts to shroud the truth, leaked photos reveal the grinding poverty and stark food insecurity that many North Koreans face. Away from the city's facade of prosperity, rural folks, draped in worn-out clothes, are often spotted by roadsides or near markets, their hands stretched out, begging for scraps or a few coins to survive. This desperate scene, reminiscent of the 1990s famine known as the Arduous March, persists today among the most vulnerable. The sight is a stark slap against the regime's narrative of a flourishing nation. These images, which the government hates to let slip past its tight grip, show the reality of many who, day in and day out, struggle to fill their bellies. They rely on the mercy of strangers and whatever they can forage to make it through another day. The regime's denial of this dire situation only highlights their policy failures, as international aid workers and defectors confirm the grim tales of malnutrition, lack of healthcare, and the dire straits forcing people to beg. Truly, the struggle is real, and the people's plight is far from the regime's proclaimed glory. 18. Labor camps. On a chilling note, North Korea's notorious forced labor camps, dubbed Kwanliso and Kyowaso, are the hidden hells where the regime shrouds its darkest secrets, housing a staggering 80,000 to 120,000 souls, ranging from political detainees to unlucky defectors snatched back from China. These camps are the epitome of brutality. Imagine being thrown into a nightmarish world where torture, forced labor, and starvation are just your daily bread. Rare photos of these camps are as scarce as hen's teeth, thanks to the regime's ironclad grip on information. But thanks to satellite snaps and bone-chilling stories from escapees, the veil is partially lifted on these vast death zones. Places like Camp 14 jump off the map, not for luxury but for pushing human endurance to the brink with risky labor, scraps for food, and a death toll that keeps ticking up. It's a brutal strategy of fear and control, dragging entire families down the rabbit hole of despair, purely based on guilt by association. While global watchdogs like the United Nations scream crimes against humanity, North Korea just shrugs it off, denying and blocking any prying eyes, making every smuggled out photo or testimony a priceless peek into this grim abyss. 17. Jangmadang. In 1993, amidst the crushing famine, North Koreans kicked off a quiet revolution with Jangmadang, or informal markets, sprouting as a lifeline amid the collapse of the state-run public distribution system. Initially seen as a necessary evil by the government, these markets have since morphed into vital hubs of survival, buzzing with energy and enterprise. Operating under the radar of North Korea's iron-fisted regime, these markets serve as critical arteries, pumping food, clothing, and other essentials to a populace grappling with severe shortages. Photos capturing the bustling market scenes are a rare glimpse into the stark reality of life in North Korea, sharply contrasting the government's glossy propaganda of a thriving nation. In these markets, traders hustle hard, peddling everything from farm-fresh veggies to homemade meals and illicit goods smuggled in from China. Here, the North Korean won takes a backseat to more stable currencies like the Chinese yuan and the US dollar, underscoring the market's role as economic lifelines. While these markets bolster the local economy, they also present a conundrum for the regime, raking in much-needed revenue, yet stirring fears of growing independence among the people. The government's response? A cat-and-mouse game of crackdowns and regulations, desperately balancing between economic survival and authoritarian control. 16. No electricity. In North Korea, families sit in almost total darkness, only lit by a few candles. It's like a scene from a movie, but for them, it's just another night without electricity. Photos showing these tough times get snatched away quickly because they mess with the government's image of a thriving country. Yet satellite photos don't lie. They show North Korea as a dark spot compared to the bright lights of South Korea right next door. In the capital, Pyongyang, there's plenty of light, but in the rural areas and other cities, it's a different story. They hardly get any power because most of it goes to the capital. This isn't just about missing TV shows, it's about struggling without basic things like heating and lights, which makes life really slow and difficult. It shows an energy problem and a big gap between different areas under the North Korean government. 15. Fishing with tires. On a regular day in North Korea, you might stumble upon a sight that'll both shock and inspire you: a fisherman bobbing in the water on nothing but an old tire. This isn't a scene from a survival TV show, it's the stark reality of life here. With resources thin and sanctions heavy, North Koreans have turned desperation into innovation. This photo captures more than just a man fishing. It captures a struggle against the relentless tide of economic hardships. As sanctions clamp down and the government fumbles, ordinary folks are out here using busted tires to snag their next meal. It's a wild, almost unbelievable workaround, but necessity breeds invention. The image is a direct slap in the face to the regime's glossy propaganda that paints the picture of a thriving, self-reliant utopia. Instead, here's the real scoop. North Koreans are barely scraping by, turning everyday objects into lifelines. While the official narrative shouts progress, the truth floats on water, stark and unfiltered. A man, his tire, and the sea. 14. Hungry children. Some hidden photos show the tough reality of hunger in North Korea, especially among children, which sneak past the tight control of the government. These photos tell a very different story from the government's claims of doing well on their own. For years, bad weather, poor decisions, and tough sanctions have left their food supply really lacking, reminding people of the terrible famine in the 90s that killed millions. The government might show off pictures of healthy, smiling kids, but the real picture is seen in the thin, weak children, suffering from not having enough food. Over 10 million people in North Korea are barely getting by, hungry, with 140,000 young kids facing serious malnutrition. The problem comes from poor farming, not enough good food, and a government that focuses more on military might than feeding its people. Photographers who take these revealing photos risk a lot, but their brave work is crucial for alerting the world and pushing for change. Taking these pictures is about waking people up and making a difference for those who are starving. 13. Brutal torture methods. North Korea's detention centers are chilling places, hidden from the world's eyes. Some daring footage show just how severe the situation is inside these camps. Often, individuals who speak against the government are grabbed without a fair trial and thrown into these harsh conditions. The video reveals the brutal methods used to break their spirits: beatings, forced starvation, and painful physical positions that last for hours. For instance, prisoners might be forced to stand with arms stretched out, carrying weights, enduring unbearable pain. The footage takes us inside the infamous Yodok camp, where conditions are horrific. The cramped cells are filthy, lacking basic necessities like proper food, clothing, and medical care, leading to widespread disease and malnutrition. Guards are seen treating prisoners with extreme cruelty, forcing them to labor under brutal conditions. One poignant story is that of Otto Warmbier, an American student detained in 2016 for a minor offense and sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. He returned to the US in a tragic state and soon died, a stark reminder of the regime's ruthless treatment. Despite international outrage and continuous condemnations from entities like the United Nations, North Korea denies all accusations, keeping its secrets closely guarded. 12. Kim Jong-il Festival. Every February 16th, the streets of Pyongyang erupt with the Kim Jong-il Festival, also dubbed the Day of the Shining Star. It's a spectacular two-day bash that honors the birthday of Kim Jong-il, with everything from military showcases to fireworks that light up the night sky. This festival isn't just any event, it's a full-blown extravaganza of national pride, flaunting North Korea's cultural, military, and technological prowess. The capital is decked out in flags and banners, and millions make the pilgrimage to the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, paying homage to the preserved figures of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. The whole country comes alive with mass gymnastics, musical gigs, and mass dancing parties that seem to defy the gravity of everyday life. And let's not forget the exhibitions of the Kim Jong-gilia, a specially bred begonia named after Kim Jong-il himself. These images, though meticulously curated to beam an aura of unity and prosperity, starkly contrast the daily grind and struggles of the average North Korean. Amid these grand displays, the regime's focus on pomp over people's real needs is glaringly obvious. 11. Electric fences. A daring photo captured the harsh reality of North Korea's border defenses. Electric fences that scream, "No escape." These high-voltage barriers, decked out with barbed wire, snake along the China border, and strategic spots like the Yalu River and the flashy new Yalu River Bridge. These fences aren't just for show. They're a brutal clampdown to prevent North Koreans from bolting during spikes in political drama or economic meltdowns. Amped up during the COVID-19 frenzy, the regime slapped these electric monsters everywhere to seal the border tight, keeping both the virus and desperate citizens in check. Snapping these fences on camera is risky business. The photos toss the spotlight on North Korea's extreme lengths to cage its people. Anyone caught flirting with the idea of crossing these electrified barriers risks a lethal zap. Some have already paid with their lives. Amidst these suffocating security measures, the North Korean folks are grappling with gnawing bellies and power cuts. Locals are fuming over the regime's obsession with fortifying borders, while they're left scraping by without proper grub or juice. 10. Shanty House. If you're thinking North Korea is all about grand military parades and towering statues, buckle up. There's a whole other level to it that rarely sees the light. Smuggled photos have peeled back the curtain to reveal the gritty reality of life in shanty towns. Constructed from scraps like wood, metal sheets, and plastic tarps, these rough neighborhoods are tucked away on the fringes of cities or lost in the countryside, miles away from Pyongyang's polished facade. These snapshots expose a harsh existence. The residents of these makeshift communities lack essentials like running water, electricity, or decent sanitation. They cram into tiny, shabbily furnished spaces. Think creaky chairs and makeshift beds cobbled together from leftovers. The bare-bones living conditions are a testament to their daily grind. Living on the edge in these shanty towns isn't just tough, it's downright dangerous. The lack of clean water and proper toilets means diseases spread fast. The homes, flimsily built, offer little protection against the harsh weather. This hidden side of North Korea starkly contrasts with the pristine image it projects to the world, revealing a reality that's as tough as nails. 9. North Korean defectors. North Korean defectors are pulling off some wild stunts to escape their ironclad borders. Defecting from North Korea? That's a life-threatening gig. If caught, they're done for. Yet these photos unveil the brutal realities these brave souls endure, debunking the North Korean government's glossy narrative of a content, loyal populace. In these snapshots, you'll spot folks darting across rivers, sneaking in trucks, or navigating treacherous terrains, all to dodge the grips of hunger, persecution, and draconian political control. Sungju Lee's tale? It's straight out of a thriller. Once a privileged resident of Pyongyang, his family's fall from grace shoved them into a nightmare of crime and starvation. Abandoned by his folks, Sungju ran with a gang of street kids just to make it day to day. His twist of fate? Escaping to China and eventually catching a break to South Korea, where he reunited with his dad, flipping his life script entirely. And those reunion shots? Pure emotion, tears, joy, relief. They've got it all. Every frame shatters the regime's propaganda, spotlighting the raw struggle for a shot at freedom. These powerful visuals are not just pictures, they're windows into the dire straits of those fleeing the North Korean nightmare. 8. Queue for buses. Seeing photos of people waiting for buses in North Korea gives a real sense of the daily struggle and control the government has over transport. Visitors often take these pictures in secret, showing long lines of people in both cities and the countryside. These images are a touchy subject. They peel back the curtain on the grim reality of public transport in a land masquerading as a utopia. Here, getting from A to B is a chore. With buses, trams, and trolleybuses being the lifeline, the scant number of vehicles makes each stop a marathon of patience. People stand for hours, a silent testimony to the dire straits of resource mismanagement and economic woes plaguing the country. These waiting lines aren't just queues, they're a loud whisper against the regime's glossy narrative of order and prosperity. Contrary to state-spun tales of sophistication, these candid photos throw the spotlight on overcrowded buses and the daily hustle just to catch a ride. With the government's fingers in every pie, including transport, these endless lines shout volumes about the deep-seated issues threading through North Korean society. 7. No internet. The tale of no internet in North Korea slaps hard with the truth of how deep the government digs to clamp down on info and quarantine its citizens from the world. In this sealed fortress of a country, it's just a handful of top brass who get a crack at the real internet. The rest of the populace is left to mess around with Kwangmyong, a choked-up network littered with nothing but government-stamped sites. Snaps of these tech-deprived zones are hot potatoes because they blow the lid off the regime's iron grip on tech and info. You'll see people using dated computers in schools and libraries, all hooked to this insular network, completely cut off from the global web. The government's game plan is to muzzle any whiff of foreign thoughts or dissent. Back in 2016, a tech blunder spilled the beans, showing the world that North Korea's online reach was just a measly 28 sites. This slip-up spotlighted the lengths the regime goes to cage its citizens' online lives and keep a lid on the digital world. 6. Portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. In North Korea, portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il are way more than just pictures. They're tools of control and signs of the government's power. These portraits are everywhere, in homes, public spots, and offices, and they have to be kept in perfect condition. There can be serious consequences if they're damaged or not cared for properly. These images serve as daily reminders of the regime's dominance and the intense loyalty that the Kim family demands from people. They're key parts of the propaganda effort, designed to keep everyone's allegiance strong. Kim Il-sung, the country's founder, and his son, Kim Jong-il, are often shown surrounded by slogans that praise their leadership. Kim Jong-un's portrait has been added alongside his dad and granddad, cementing his spot in this family legacy. The careful placement of these portraits and the way they're shown in the media are all about making sure Kim Jong-un's authority is clear and continuing the family's rule. 5. Soldiers farming. It's pretty shocking, but in North Korea, soldiers are often sent to work on farms, and the government doesn't want the world to know about it. Some visitors have managed to snap photos showing these soldiers, who we usually think of as just protectors, actually planting rice, taking care of crops, and harvesting food. These images come out especially during the planting and harvest times when food shortages hit hard, and there aren't enough civilian workers. These photos are a big deal because they clash with North Korea's claim that it's self-sufficient and strong. Instead, they reveal the serious food problems and the country's drastic measures to try to manage them. 4. Kids playing in streets. When you peek behind North Korea's usually closed doors, it's surprising to see kids just playing in the streets. Normally, you don't get to see these everyday moments because the government keeps everything under wraps. If you head away from the big city of Pyongyang to quieter spots, it's striking. No cars, no hustle and bustle, just kids enjoying themselves on empty streets. This silence really shows off North Korea's economic troubles and how isolated it is, but it also shows the resilience and spirit of these kids, despite the government's attempts to show a perfect, organized country. Their photos show a real, untouched side of life in North Korea that goes against the government's usual positive spin, especially the big differences between life in cities and in the countryside. 3. Old radios. In North Korea, old-fashioned radios are more than just relics. They're key tools for the government to keep control. Every home has one, and they can only pick up government stations. This means people only get to hear what the leaders want them to hear, blocking any foreign stations or anything the government doesn't approve of. It's a smart way to keep a tight hold on information, stop different opinions from getting in, and discourage any opposition. These radios are everywhere, in homes and workplaces, even though there's newer technology out there. They play a big role in spreading government messages, including news, cultural shows, and stuff designed to make people stay loyal to the regime. The government watches closely what everyone listens to, and if you mess with your radio to try and catch other channels, you could be in big trouble. This constant monitoring keeps everyone in check and scared, making sure the government stays in control. While the world moves on with new gadgets, North Korea sticks to these old radios, using them to control minds and keep their power. 2. Secret female soldier. North Korea, always cloaked in mystery, boasts a massive military of about 7 million people. But here's the thing, these folks didn't choose to be soldiers. They were forced into it, no questions asked. Hidden within this giant army is a unique group, a secretive female squad. They're not just regular soldiers. Their job? They perform at big official events, cutting through the air with heavy katanas and marching so precisely they could almost cut time in half. Their main role is to impress and amaze, especially the top leaders of the country. It's a crazy mix of showy moves and serious military presence, creating a show that's as captivating as it is unique. 1. Dilapidated buildings. Thinking about what isolation does to a country, just look at North Korea. By shutting itself off from the world, the regime makes life brutally tough for its citizens. A glaring problem? The dire shortage of basic construction materials. Despite the squeeze, the North Korean spirit is unbreakable. People scramble with what little they have, often resorting to subpar materials for building. The end result? Structures that are barely standing and could crumble any minute. The gravity of this situation is exposed through secret snaps of crumbling buildings smack in the heart of Pyongyang. If the capital is struggling with shoddy structures, imagine the plight in the hinterlands. These leaked shots offer a raw peek into the grim reality of North Korea's self-chosen exile. It's more than concerning, it's a ticking time bomb.